We welcome in Greg Bedard of the Boston Sports Journal after a 24-23 Patriots win. Greg, good afternoon. How are you?
Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Doing great. And I want to know, based on your perspective with what you watched today, should I be more encouraged or discouraged by the way this game played out and the win the Patriots got today?
Mark, I think the way I would answer that is I feel good about, from my perspective, I feel good about the Patriots win today. I like that it wasn't perfect. It wasn't one of these games that we've seen lately where, Drake Maye just plays great, and certainly somewhere in the second half, the third quarter, he plays out of his gourd. They win going away. I liked that they got tested. I liked that there was some adversity, some stress on Maye and the rest of the team. They ended up winning at the end on a mixed extra point. Do I want to see how they react or react off of this next week against Tampa? Yes. Is this going to be a situation now where Drake Maye maybe questions himself a little bit, where he wasn't, for a while? Now I got to get rid of the ball, or I got to hold on to the ball? I got to, I heard his post game, he's talking about I got to get down, I got to do this. Does he get locked up in his brain again because of this, or does he just learn the lessons and just gets a little bit better next week? So in the short term, I feel good about the Patriots in winning this game, especially with some of the things that I saw was going around the league today. But you do wonder if this, sort of pierces the bubble they might have been in a little bit, and how they all react to it.
What's up, Greg? I actually thought the Patriots winning today, they did it. They won a game without Drake Maye being outstanding, right? So, that's a win, however we want to look at it. But what happened when Kayshon Boutte left the game? Was it a Maye thing? Do they have that outside receiver X? It just kind of felt like he came out of the game and things kind of fell apart. What I saw Chisholm out there at one point. What did you see when Boutte came out of the game?
I don't know if it was that. I mean, we'll have to see when we look at this game a little bit closer. I was just looking at some of the advanced analytics, and what's interesting is that I'm sure a lot of people have heard this stat, especially because Drake's been unreal, like the best or second best in the league, basically since week one, in terms of the stat called completion percentage over expected. I mean, he's been routinely like plus 15, which is absurd. It's an elite level. And what's interesting is that the first half, he was a plus 15.5. And to me, that's a measure of good quarterbacking, because the harder the completion is, whether it's down the field or tight coverage, that's how he's able to grade out well in these games. So he's making a lot of tough throws. In the second half, he was a minus 16.8. So that tells me that if the good stuff is about Drake Maye being really good, which I do agree with, then I do think the second half was Drake Maye not being good and not being accurate and not hitting the guys that he normally does. The reason for that, it's a good question. It's something we'll debate. Kayshon Boutte going out certainly doesn't help. We know what kind of security blanket he has. Kyle Williams is really the only, at least in game, when you have already established your game plan, he's really the only option out there, and it's obviously not a good option. Can they change more to Mac Hollins out there in the short term? If Boutte's out for a while, yes, but you sort of need a week to go through that. But I do think a lot of it was, I think Maye just got a little bit tight. I think that, that turnover, caused them to lose a bit of confidence, and I think that's what we saw in the second half.
Yeah, obviously the second half was a problem offensively, and I'm interested in the offensive line, Greg. The Patriots gave up 6 sacks for 38 yards, but at the same time they were 8 for 12 on third down, and on a few of those third downs and a few of those big plays, they actually got some good protection. So it didn't feel like, to me, Drake Maye was under duress all day long. But the 6 sacks is a bigger number than you'd want to see. So I'm trying to decipher, where did the offensive line come in terms of how well they played today based on what you saw?
So obviously Michael Wenu missed a couple of games and a couple of very big spots, which is a problem for him. It looks like some of these teams are looking at him because he does not move very well side to side anymore. I'm not sure he ever did. Overall, I thought the protection was good. I thought Josh McDaniels has been very good about this year. Like any of these shot plays, these big plays, it all starts with, and I heard Dan Orlovsky talking about this, it all starts with, a guy like Josh McDaniels, as opposed to some other offensive coordinators, start with, all right, well, this is what we want to do down the field. Well, how are we going to protect it? Because if we don't, there's no point in running this play down the field for a shot play. So I think he does a really good job with that. I do think that, again, and this was an issue last week as well, certainly in the first half, not the second half, but Drake is a part of these issues. It didn't need to be 6 sacks last week. It should have been 2 or 3, and Drake factors into that. Drake factored into at least 2 sacks that I saw today, where and I'm not gonna rip him for it because it's tough. I mean, he did have some underneath stuff where it's like, all right, you get to 1, 2, 2.5, then you have to know where your checkdowns are, whether it's a back in the flat, whether that's Steph Diggs right in front of you. He's got to do a little bit better job of that. However, I will say it's extremely difficult to be one of these kids who can run, can pass, can make plays with his legs, which we see him do, which he did on a big third down later in the game. He's just going to have to figure out how to do it. I used to have these conversations with Aaron Rodgers all the time. I mean, it's something that Tom Brady didn't have to worry about, and Brett Favre later in his career didn't have to worry about, where, eluding guys and making plays with your feet. So it's going to be sort of a trial and error thing, and Drake just needs experience. He's never going to be perfect at it. None of these guys, none of these athletic quarterbacks are, but he will get better at it the more experience he gets.
Greg, just real quick, what'd you think of Michael Penix late in the game there? I guess I'm going to change his name to Michael Panix because that was atrocious. And, just to credit Mike Vrabel, he talked about effort, finish, and beating bad football, and I think the Patriots did those 3 things today.
Yeah, they almost became a victim of bad football themselves, but in the end, they ended up winning by 1 point. The more I saw on film of Penix, I did like him in college. I liked the way he spun the ball, but the more I've watched him in the pros, first of all, that offense is just terrible with Zach Robinson. I mean, the pistol stuff, and I think I saw Penix actually go under center once, and of course Bijan Robinson gets like a 10-yard run on it. It's just they have no idea what they're doing on offense. Penix, you cannot have a grounding call there. Like, you got to. I know the snap came earlier than you wanted to, but you got to find something out better than that, better than what he did. I mean, that was just a huge play in the game. That was the game right there, and it just. It just can't happen, especially for a guy who's basically like 34 years old, considering the amount of experience, and he sort of looks like he's 34 out there. But, you definitely felt good about having Maye over Michael Penix today.
Pop Douglas touchdown. I want to ask you about Pop Douglas because, frankly, there have been times this year where I'm not sure they wanted him on the roster, wanted him that involved. There have been times this year where I'm telling myself this might be the best receiver on the Patriots. What is Pop Douglas for this team, and how, based on what you've heard, what you've seen, do they view him right now?
What is he for this team? I think he's basically, the way I view his role right now, and we'll see if this changes with the booty hamstring injury. I don't think it will, because I think they play 2 different positions. But it's basically him and Steph Diggs sort of platoon as the slot, and I would say Demario Douglas is sort of the bigger hitter. If they can isolate him and get him some shot plays, we've sort of see him live on these posts and deep cross. So I think he's doing a really good job. Hard to say whether they need more for him. I think that a lot of these guys you've seen, it's somebody else every week. Depends on the matchup, depends on the other team. But I think he's doing a good job. I think he's gaining more confidence. I think, he kind of had his confidence shaken early on in the season with sort of like a reduced role, and he wasn't seeing the ball that much. But I think he's getting a lot more comfortable right now.
Just to pick up on the Booty thing, how do they play this with the hamstring? We saw what happened with Christian Gonzalez, but you got Tampa Bay next week, and then you have the short week on Thursday Night Football. Is there a chance that he could miss both games?
Yeah, I think there is. Given how we saw, I mean, it's really hard to tell. Every player and every injury is different, but it's either. I think he's either got a really good chance of playing in the Thursday night game, or there's a good chance that we won't see him until after that. Get him a bunch of rest, and hopefully that's good enough. I did see him grabbing his hamstring, earlier in a couple plays right towards the end of the first half, but then I saw him trot back out there into the huddle, and then suddenly, at halftime, he was gone. But that's obviously a big blow. You could see, the confidence that Drake Maye has in him. They don't really have any ready-made sort of replacements at that ex-boundary receiver. They've tried Kyle Williams, but obviously that's been a disaster to this point. Another miscommunication today. I think in when you're talking about just the game plan, I think, Mac Hollins has a better chance to do that. But then again, they like to put him inside to help in the run blocking, even though that's a little bit hit and miss. But, it's going to be a challenge to replace Booty.
And Christian Gonzalez was not on the field, it sounds like, at the end of the game. But he looks like he passed protocol. But it was a tough day for the corners, right? Drake London was outstanding. But was it a mismatch for Marcus Jones? I know we're going to say it wasn't a good day for him, but you're going up against the size difference, and at times, shouldn't that be Carlton Davis's spot for that?
Yeah, so this is one of my, and it's hard to really complain about it because, their points per game continues to be good, but, the advanced analytics with everything. I mean, the Patriots have one of the best run defenses in the league, yet, in like DVOA, they're still 28th in defense. That just tells you how bad their pass defense has been, especially against the teams that they played. One of my main criticisms about this team is like I don't love the defensive system from these guys in Tennessee. They're known for being pretty zone heavy. They can play man. They do play man, certainly in some key spots, and it works out well for them. But I do think that they need to. I think that more man coverage suits the personnel on this team, and I think they need to go to it. And then what we saw in the end zone today, or in the red zone against Drake London. That's a coaching decision. How are we going to play, these stacks? How are we going to play, where these guys are set up near each other? Are we going to switch? Are we going to lock coverage? Because there's pros and cons to everything. If you lock, then you could get rubbed, and and you're talking about a wide open touchdown. And so this was a problem in sort of the preseason and early on in the season, where teams that look like teams were picking on Marcus Jones and his lack of size. Other teams are going to see this, and they're going to continue to do it. So there's going to have to be a coaching adjustment on how they do these things in terms of whether they switch or lock.
Will the biggest theme, Greg, going forward for the Patriots for really the rest of the year be about the turnovers? And if Drake Maye can avoid turning the ball over? Because, obviously the Falcons aren't the best team in the league. But once again, as soon as he started to kind of turn back to throwing the ball to the other team or fumbling, it became a winnable game for the opponent. Is it really, at least right now, going to be all about Drake Maye protecting the ball without giving up, those dynamic plays they like to get down the field?
Yeah, it is. And that's sort of been the formula for this team, which is, if the quarterback takes care of the ball and can find a way to make some explosive plays, which he does in conjunction with Josh McDaniels, they're going to be in every game. That's sort of the amazing thing about today is that, they turned the ball over twice, led to 10 points. Drake Maye, dribbled another ball that he ended up recovering, and they ended up surviving at the end of the day. But that's really where this team is in terms of the talent on the roster and, just sort of the rebuild of the program. It's unfortunately for Drake, it's all on him. He's got to take care of the ball, and he's got to make some plays. The defense will hold enough, and that's the formula for this team.
All right. We'll get you out of here with this. I know Greg wanted me to ask. Cardi B was at the game today. Greg, give me your top 3 Cardi B's. No, okay. I'm just kidding. I know you're a big fan of Invasion of Privacy there in her album. All right, Greg Bedard of the Boston Sports Journal joining us here. Greg, thanks so much for the insight.
Hey, real quick, Greg, before we can they beat the Bucks playing like this today?
No. I haven't seen the Bucks in a while. I know. What's his name? The big receiver's been out.
Evans has been out. Yeah.
Were they on a bye this week?
Yes.
I think they're on a bye.
Yep, they're up.
So that's big. They could get Godwin back. They could get Ibuka back.
Bucky Irvin.
No, they can't. Yeah, Bucky Irvin. They cannot. They can't beat the good teams in this league with Drake Maye turning the ball over twice. Can't happen.
Okay.
All right, Greg Bedard, Boston Sports Journal. Thanks, Greg. We'll talk to you Tuesday.
Thanks, Greg.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.